We can go ahead and begin general session of the Springfield Ball Charter School Board of Directors at 6:53 this evening. And as we begin, we'll kick it off with our visitors open discussion forum. If there's anybody that would like to speak or share, can you just raise your hand or let us know if we have anybody that signed up ahead of time also. And then we just ask, just in interest of time, if everyone could limit their comments to at about 2 minutes, please.
I believe Nurse Lisa wanted to speak.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks. Go ahead.
Hello. I was trying to raise my hand. I'm not sure I was pushing the right buttons here. So I just thank you to the board. And I just want to say hello. I think most of you know me. I'm the nurse here at Springfield Ball Charter. I want to start by telling you that I appreciate and applaud your wisdom and insight into the safety and protection of our students, parents, staff, teachers, administrators, by holding to the decision to meet the metrics of the COVID virus mitigation prior to our return to in-person learning. It may be that these concerns that I present now will be addressed further later in the meeting, so I'll try to keep it brief. I do know that it is of the highest concern and intent of our board to consider the safety of all as you decide when it is most appropriate to return to in-person learning. As you consider these concerns, I would like to share a few situations that the nurses from the district have encountered having returned to the in-person setting in their schools. I know that you're not the governing body for the district. I also do not mean to sound critical of the decisions that that board was forced to make. I merely want to make you aware of some concerns that I have that have come up as these nurse warriors were sent into battle, in my humble opinion, too soon and unprepared. I have been reading every word of the emails sent out by the district nurses in the attempt to glean from their situations how best to prepare for a smooth transition when we return to in-person learning. My mouth drops at the uncharted waters that they are attempting and expected to navigate. To use the slang vernacular, it's a hot mess. They are so overwhelmed and unprepared for this return. They are to be tracking, and then they're not tracking. And they today just received their training to use the computer tracking system. They are testing, and then they're not testing, and now they're back to testing. And they're also treating, not with medicine, but treating situations, sending students home, calling schools, nurses from other schools of the sibling of the student that needs to go home, and have those students sent home as well. And they are desperately trying to get to their typical duties of seeing students with medical needs during their school day. Many of these nurses were vaccinated just once. They didn't receive both vaccinations in the series, and they returned the very next day to their new duties. I see some of these situations at the very least unfair, and in some cases, putting them at higher risk in their environment. I truly appreciate you as the board having the insight not to put us at undue risk by deciding to delay our return, at least until the community metrics are met, if not until after many of these different issues have been addressed that these nurses and their schools are experiencing. Coming from a hospital background, if a nurse was overwhelmed, they would call first the charge nurse and then the nurse coordinator on duty to share the situations. For instance, I'm sinking. And they would do their best to help provide additional help. The nurses in the school setting do not have this luxury. In addition to these concerns, I have been watching closely the district's COVID dashboard and noticed that the numbers hadn't changed since the return to hybrid learning. Yet I would continue to read email upon email about the nurses asking each other, within the HIPAA guidelines, of course, how to deal with this COVID symptomatic student or this COVID positive student and family. So I asked one of those nurses what she knew about the dashboard numbers, not changing despite all of these cases. She got back to me with dashboard numbers. And then, Lisa, I don't even have time to eat, pee, think. I don't know even what's on the dashboard. I am not making any type of accusations of the intent not to report the accurate numbers. I just believe that these numbers are not reflective of what the nurses are experiencing in their schools. Lastly, in addition to delaying our return until community metrics are met, to consider delaying until a majority of our students, excuse me, not students, our teachers, administrators, and staff are vaccinated would be optimal. There is a proverbial light at the end of this tunnel. To turn into the darkness and essentially have a thought process of we can navigate educating our students safely in this darkness of this horribly deadly disease, which is highly contagious and increasingly so with the new knowledge of the virus's variant concerns. This is not reasonable thinking. Again, I just want to stop and appreciate your insight and your wisdom as you further consider the safety of all in your decisions to return to in-person learning. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Do we have any other individuals that wanted to share? I'm sorry that I can't always see the hands.
I don't see any at this time.
I've had no one else reach out to me asking to share.
Thanks, Ms. Marquise. Thank you, Mrs. Williams. I appreciate the help. So then moving on in our agenda this evening for president comments and board salutes. I'll just start by congratulating our colleague, Sheila Boozer. We're also very proud and excited for you. Very sad for ourselves to lose you, but couldn't be more proud and excited. Also, kudos to our staff and our families for a really successful virtual math night. 81 students logging on to participate in that event is really great. And so thank you for all the extra efforts to engage kids and families. And congratulations to all the January students of the month who were recognized, especially for their kindness being exhibited through their class meetings. An awesome feat. Any other board members that had anything that they wanted to share this evening? All right, then, Mr. Brower, the floor is yours as we move on to Finance Committee update.
Okay, thanks, Mary. Congratulations again, Sheila. Yeah, it's going to be another brief session here for finance. As you, Mary, and Todd with Finance Committee, I shared last week with you that we're again still running a maintenance budget. We are paying people, we're covering insurance premiums, we're keeping the lights on with utilities, district invoicing through that. But we are, we're not doing a lot of other things with regard to expenditures associated with any type of travel, PD, substitute expenses, any of that stuff going on that we would normally have during a routine school year. So again, the income from the profit and loss report notes, if you have those, if you've had a chance to look at them, income is up about 2.5% over last year at this time. And expenses are down about 5% from last year at this time as a result, again, of remote learning activities associated with that. So Patrick and Corinne, I know being new board members, you may have questions associated with the profit and loss report notes or P&L or the comparison, which is another good report if you get a chance to look at that for profit and loss comparison from last year to this year where expenditures are. Those are good reports, I think, from my standpoint. If you have any questions associated with those, please feel free to call me at school or give me an email, and I'll be happy to go through them more thoroughly with you. Other than that, Mary, there's really nothing terribly exciting to report in finance this month. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. No apologies needed. And then moving on, I could say the same for governance. Brian, I'm not missing anything, am I? I don't believe there's anything that governance needs to report out on at this time.
No, although we will be needing to work on the unfortunate but congratulatory movement of Ms. Boozer, but that's for the future.
Thank you so much, you guys, for making me blush and bringing tears to my eyes once again.
All righty then. Moving forward, Mrs. Williams, do you want to move on with your administrative report this evening?
In terms of our curriculum update, I am going to turn things over to Mrs. Harrison to talk a little bit about what our data days include. You can kind of give kind of a brief overview for that and then talk about some of the outcomes.
Absolutely. Again, congratulations, Sheila. So happy for you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So far this year, we've taken one of our MAP tests. MAP stands for Measure of Academic Progress, and we usually take that test 3 times a year in math and reading. It's nationally normed, so it compares our students with everyone in the United States who has purchased MAP and is giving that testing. I have the fall, winter, and then the fall of this year data. And as you can see in our MAP literacy, we last fall were at 54%. Then in the winter, we went up a percentage to 55. And then this fall, we went all the way up to 68%. What we're always shooting for in terms of data is to be as close to we can at the 80% mark. We want 80% of our students to meet or exceed on these tests with just tier 1, which is the instruction that all students receive in the classroom. If students are not meeting those standards, we always provide interventions in reading and math for whatever amount of time and length that those students need them. The second form of data is our ERLA program. It is a reading framework, and you can see that this has went down. When you're in remote learning, ERLA requires you to enter data individually for students. And that's incredibly hard to do with the time constraints of remote learning. So we're not sure that this data is accurate because we've been remote the entire school year, and it's been difficult to do ERLA with the fidelity and integrity that you would have when you're in-person learning. We will, however, keep an eye on this when we do our next testing, which will be in the spring. And our hope is that this data has risen. Obviously, we'll have conversations too at the team level and grade level about what things we can do to increase this data. Our MAP math was 47 last fall. It dropped a little bit in the winter, but now we are back up to 59%. Our analysis basically is that our MAP literacy increased 13%. The ERLA decreased some, but again, that's probably because of the remote learning. And then our MAP percentage increased as well. Some questions we'll be considering at the grade level, team level: how has remote learning affected our ERLA percentages, and how can we make it, how can we make that better? Is MAP data being used to drive the grade level and classroom instruction as well as interventions? What goals can we make for improvement by the end of the year at the grade level? And how can we continue to improve our tier 1? And our tier 1 is what every student gets. That's what the classroom teacher gives the curriculum for all students. And then those interventions are the layers on top of that tier 1 that meet the individual or group needs of students. In terms of interventions, again, there are tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. Tier 2 is usually a small group and maybe 15 to 20 minutes a day. Tier 3 would be then on top of tier 2, and that would be an extra intervention, and usually those are individual if possible, and that would be extra time on top of what the tier 2 was. We have kindergarten, there's 16 students receiving interventions in literacy and math. First grade, 16 literacy, 13 math. And as you can see, I've listed each of the grade levels and how many kids are receiving interventions. Our goal is always for 20% of the students receiving an intervention. Again, that 80% should have their needs met just with the tier 1 instruction. Our next steps is I will present this data along with some more in-depth data at our faculty meeting this week. We'll have discussions about those questions to consider. Have each classroom teacher grade level write SMART goals so we can address MAP improvement for the spring. Create expectations and procedures for ERLA so that we make sure that we're all on the same page, doing the same thing, entering data on a regular basis, and then also making sure that we do it with fidelity and integrity. Provide teachers, as always, with further ERLA and MAP trainings as needed. And then we'll have another day-to-day in 6 to 8 weeks. We'll take a look at the students who are receiving interventions, see if they are working based on progress monitoring, and then change those as needed. I will say that for the teachers, giving MAP this year was a completely different experience because it was done remotely. And I can tell you that they did that with such grace in class, and it went much better than I expected. There were very few problems, and if there were, they were very minor. So kudos to the teachers for hanging in there, because even on the best day in person, MAP testing can be frustrating, and they handled it really well. Any questions?
And I would say not a question, but a comment, just kind of going back to that early data.
Mhm.
Hopefully one thing you can appreciate about Ball Charter is our transparency. It would be very easy to just highlight everything that we're doing really, really well. But I also believe that any corporations, organizations, or programs that are created for educational purposes and for use in school have also had to have a wake-up call over the last year about how well their program can be run in a remote setting. And I think there are several that we have used that have really stepped up and found innovative ways to help teachers more efficiently use the program, enter data, making it more accessible to students or easier to navigate through. And we, quite frankly, haven't seen any modifications through our current reading program. And you cannot all of a sudden teach remotely and not be able to adapt. And so, you know, one thing that we've learned from that too is as we look into the future at other curriculums that, you know, we would want to use, nobody would ever consider a pandemic and the need for the company to continue to develop their program and their products so that it is adaptable. But certainly now that would be a huge consideration. So we have the benefit of the e-library that American Reading Company did offer, but even the options in the library are limited. And it has been up to our teachers who are well practiced in developing their own curriculum to supplement. But yes, we have definitely had to supplement when some of the programs that we've invested in have not adapted to the current climate. So I just kind of wanted to make note of that. And again, you know, we still will be transparent, but if you match up our MAP literacy data and ERLA data, which is based on those assessments of individual students that teachers cannot do, you know, it's very, very telling, you know, what data we think is a little bit more accurate.
Yeah, and just ideally, if you'd want the MAP literacy and the ERLA to be kind of close together. Some of these programs just quite simply weren't meant for remote learning. That was never a consideration for the program. And like Mrs. Williams said, they haven't adapted to this drastic change. So it is what it is. That's what we had to use. And the teachers have had to supplement and adapt this program to meet the varied needs and the differing needs now.
Yes. Thank you. I also wanted to speak to, you know, several of the other things taking place in the building. These are kind of, you know, Principal Williams shout outs, but I start with our IEP and special education team. And I think it's been noted from our caseworker and from others just how well our students are being supported, even from one-on-one support. You know, Miss Dennison has figured out how to support a child one-on-one in a virtual world. And it's very challenging, and sometimes it requires um, extra effort and creativity. But as a principal, to observe these things is just really, really amazing to me. And the remote learning still allows us to do small group work that we couldn't do distanced. And so we are using our remote learning time really, you know, to the best of our ability. So I just really wanted to give a shout out to our interventionists and our special ed and IEP team. I also did want to recognize the effort of middle level students. We just celebrated 48 students making honor roll. At Ball Charter, you actually have to have a 3.3 GPA, not a 3.0, to make our honor roll. And so to have more than a third of our students meet that achievement is definitely to be celebrated. We partner with McDonald's to get some certificates out to those kids, and I sent a special phone call over, but we will also recognize them on our website. In addition to that, I just also like to make mention of our Encore team. One unique aspect of our remote learning experience is the opportunity for our students to, the majority of our students, to have Encore 4 days a week with FaceTime with their Encore teachers. And it's just something that we value at Ball Charter. And we just send kudos to our Encore team for just making those experiences very enriching for our students. There's several other things to celebrate. Again, the virtual math night that Ms. Haver mentioned. We thank our parents for their participation in that. It was really a great time for families, and there were several kids who were able to include their siblings that don't attend Ball Charter, but we welcome them to participate in virtual math night. So all of our teachers at Ball Charter participate in professional development regularly. We modified our calendar to return 1 day later, not only to make time for the day-to-day, but also for professional development. And this month, much of our professional development was led by teachers. You guys have heard the saying, you know, the experts are in the room, and we certainly felt that way on that day. And it's very exciting to see all of that our teachers have learned, and also to give them the opportunity to share with one another. And very quickly, by the next day, we had other teachers signed up for new apps and new programs that they thought would enhance instruction in the classroom. And so this is a part of the culture at Ball Charter, and it's just nice to see that continue to thrive in a remote learning situation. I do always want to extend to families that are in need, the invitation to reach out to the school. We have supported several families in different ways, and so if there is an area of struggle where the school can be a support, please don't hesitate to contact us. I do feel at this time we are a small school community. We know each other, and especially between the teachers, administration, and support staff, we feel like we really know our families. But we always encourage them to call if there's any way we can help. It's a difficult time emotionally, and it may be in other ways. So, but we're just proud of the work that everybody is doing. think.
Okay, was that everything from your update and improvement plan, et cetera?
I believe so. I will make mention that we are really proud of attendance. Um, we have done some things to reflect our commitment to student choice. We heard from some of our middle level students that they wanted to do more than study island. And so we answered that call. And of course, several of our students were attending SEL sessions with our interventionist, Mrs. Scroggin. But there was an opportunity for makeup work to count for their attendance credit. And we've had small group sessions, tutoring help. So the students can now kind of discuss that with their parents and have some choice in the activities they participate in on Monday. We've gone to a system of doing that through a Google form. And Mondays are obviously our lowest day of attendance because there isn't direct instruction on that day, but we found a 25% increase in documented participation from students by reaching out to families in this way, kind of making them aware again of what their options are on Monday, and by allowing students to have some choice in that. So that just kind of felt good, and it felt like an opportunity for us to respond, even though we have pretty good attendance numbers, that we wouldn't be satisfied with that. We'd continue to work. And we also I know in December put some incentives out for students that were participating in the earlier part of the day when that attendance is taken, and then dropping off at the end of the day. And so our teachers have been working overtime on making sure those students remain engaged and that parents are informed as to our schedule. But again, it just makes me feel good that we're still identifying areas of improvement and areas where we can further support our students and families. And our mascot was able to visit a couple homes of kids who had made great improvements in their afternoon attendance, specifically before the holidays. And so that was a lot of fun. So we're just continuing to look at what the specific needs are of our families as they call, and trying to make sure that we meet all of those needs. And that's it.
Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it. Mrs. Boozer, as we move on, do you have any updates from our partners at 186?
Sure. First, I just want to give a shout out to Ball Charter with the whole MAP assessment. Just want to note that MAP did a wonderful job of making sure that they were able to meet the needs in a remote environment. So you can rely on that data. And also looking at my research, there is no significant change or difference in testing with MAP remote or in person. So you can bank on that data being pretty accurate. So I just wanted to give you a shout out on that. So good job. 186 is in week 3 of hybrid. Going into week 3, I should say, of hybrid. The first week, we realized that people were going to be a little apprehensive, and so I sent out my whole instructional support team, which is about 35 people, to different buildings in the system, just to be hands on deck to support the teachers, nurses, administrators in whatever way we possibly could. And I too went, and the first day the bus rolled in with the little guys and girls getting off of it. It just, even though it was only a handful, just brought tears to my eyes because it reminded me of what we really do and why we do what we do. I've been a sub. I subbed in an ELC classroom because the teacher couldn't be there. We're finding that the numbers are not as bad as we thought they were going to be, but we still are finding that we're having adults who are being exposed outside of the school, family members, and so therefore they can't come in. So our teachers are phenomenal and doing a great job of trying to figure out how to work around that. So a lot of them, and of course 186 is doing the hybrid AB schedule. So a lot of our teachers were like trying to, especially elementary, are like, okay, we've been teaching 4 days a week, direct instruction. So how can we continue to do that? So several are using the high flex model, where the kids who are on B day are zoomed in with the kids who are face to face on A day. And then they do the same thing back and forth. And I've been in classrooms watching it. It is not easy to do, and we didn't require it, but the teachers wanted to do it. And if you want to do something that you think is best for kids, we're not going to tell you no. And it's been working wonderful in a lot of places. We purchased some cameras for them if they want to use it, and they're finding that their cameras on their computers are working just fine. Also, we have office hours that we're providing for our teachers, and I wanted to extend this to Ball Charter as well, for technology integration, and also just office hours and conversations with literacy, math, content areas, and how to integrate technology into the content areas. And if you want to know when those are offered, they're on the Teaching and Learning website. So just go there, and they have them. And we also have SEL office hours as well for staff. We've offered SEL support for families. So we have some parent SEL sessions that we have going on in the evenings that have been pretty well attended. How to balance work and play, or just so they can talk to each other, and things of that nature. So that's been really, really good as well. We also sent out today, Superintendent Gill, about inclement weather. So in the past, if it was a snow day, too cold to go to school or what have you, we had to cancel school. Well, now that we are in a remote environment, so to speak, well, we have technology in the hands of all of our kids, we don't have to do that. So if by chance we can't get to school or what have you, then the schools will remain open, but the kids will stay home, and it'll be a remote day for everyone. Instead of being an A-B day or hybrid, it'll be a remote day for everyone. But in the event that the whole city ever gets shut down, then we'll have to not offer it. But if the city's not shut down, and it's a cold day, snow day, you don't have to make up that day. Everybody can be at home and still do remote learning. So that's a plus. So that's something we're excited about. We too looked at our map data and saw some of the same trends that Ball Charter are seeing. We've worked out some of the attendance glitches that we had going on in the first semester, and some of it was systems. It's not always the kids, and we were finding out it wasn't the kids in some cases. So now we really know which kids are really missing now that we've worked out the kinks in the our system that we had going on. And I think for the most part, daily reports, we do a daily report for students who are sent home. I do know that with the dashboard is updated daily, but we only count those students who are positive, not those who are just have symptoms. We don't update those. We only count positive or primary contacts. We don't count those who just may be displaying some symptoms. So, and with everything, when you start something new, there are glitches here and there, but we're always at the table continuing to talk and to make things better as we simply can. Nobody knows how to navigate this. Nobody knew this was coming, but I'm thankful for being in a system where we're all figuring this all out together. We make mistakes here and there, but once we figure things out, we want to keep going. And Tiffany, thank you for your comment about being transparent, because that is the only way to get through a time such as this. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks for all that good info. We appreciate you.
Mhm.
All right, so moving forward in our agenda this evening to our action items, consent agenda, looking for a motion to approve the executive session minutes and regular session minutes from our November 23rd meeting.
So moved.
Second.
At this time, moved by Brian and seconded by Sheila. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, then those are approved. We have no roll call action items before us this evening. So we can move to any other business. And Mrs. Williams,
Sure, we had one more speaker that person that requested to speak, Mr. Dickerson.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I missed the opening there with the public comment. I just wanted to hop on here. First of all, I want to thank all the board members for your volunteer work here. I really do appreciate it. And I do appreciate everything Mrs. Williams and the teachers and everyone have done for the students this year. But I do have just a couple questions slash comments. And we're hearing the negatives about 186, but we need to focus more on the positives that the parochials and the privates are doing. I would hope that, you know, not singling out the nurse, but she's hearing from 186 other nurses. How about the people in the parochials and privates? How have they maintained their students in the school since August and have done it pretty successfully for the most part? So I'm frustrated, and I know a lot of you are. I think the kids need to be in school 100%. And I'll be more than happy to talk to you on a personal level on why it's not working for us and the detriment that we are seeing in our child. It's not appropriate for me to talk about that in a public forum, but I would be more than happy to talk to anyone because I think a lot of times you're hearing the great news that our kids are being successful, but there are many kids that this has been detrimental to. And I'm just hoping that when this is all over, our kids can return to normal. And I hope that, you know, what they're going through now is not a lasting impact on our children. But a couple things I have not heard from any board members on your opinions. Are you all in unanimous decision that you're going by those metrics and that's it? Are you taking votes in during executive session? Do some of you want kids in and some of you don't want kids? Why or why not? We're not hearing that at the board meeting. So I would ask that question to you board members. What are your personal feelings on this? Do you think kids should be back in school or not? And then also if we were to say, you know, if you guys said we're opening the school tomorrow, is the school ready for that? Because one of our neighbors, he is a head custodian at one of the schools, and he did say it is not good. But you know, the teachers don't know what to do, the custodians do not know what to do, when to sanitize. So, do we have those protocols in place, and will our teachers know what's expected of them and the custodians on the first day when it's back? So that it's not a learning process of a week or 2 weeks. The first day, our teachers and Miss Williams knows what you guys want her to do. And is the school ready? Do you have to have plexi? Do you need volunteers to come in and help put plexi up? I would be more than happy to come help. Whatever it takes to get our kids back in school, I'm willing to do. So just a couple questions there. What are your board? And I'll stop. So thank you so much for letting me you know, voice my opinions. And again, I do greatly appreciate everything you're all doing. Please don't take my criticisms as not, because I really do. Do not envy all of you, and I do appreciate everything that you're doing. So thank you.
Thanks for sharing. And just to be upfront, every decision and every vote that happens and occurs takes place here in open session. So any decision that we come to is here shared with the public and voted on accordingly. So we're operating under the plan that we approved towards the end of the 2020 calendar year and utilizing those metrics, but then constantly reviewing those metrics and determining the best way that we can use them and finding the most accurate and consistent ones so that we can make the best decision as we go along. Mrs. Williams could speak more to the return to learn plan that's in place for the building. But then I can also speak as a teacher myself, and operating under that return to learn plan. I was very well informed of how you know, I would be expected to sanitize my room and my area, how I would handle those situations. We did walkthroughs and practices and test runs of how arrivals and departures would look, had those discussions and troubleshooted along the way. And I have no doubt in my mind that Mrs. Williams and Mrs. Harrison would operate in this same manner and have the resources that they need, because those were provided for us to make that happen. But I'll let Mrs. Williams speak to that a little bit more as well.
Sure. We believe that we made some of the cosmetic changes that needed to be made to the building. We were ready in August for many of those recommendations that came from the state level. And I'll be honest with you, Mr. Dickerson, I'm the kind of leader that I wouldn't feel comfortable putting teachers in a position at any time where they're scrambling. That's just kind of the way I believe in planning. And and again, just like other people have said, we're not being critical of other districts or other schools' choices, but we're fortunate to be able to kind of make a decision as a school of choice and within this body. I work very closely, not just with my instructional leadership team, but also at the team level on a weekly and bi-weekly basis of hearing concerns from team members and areas where teachers say, hey, I need to know more about this, or have we addressed this? We have been providing some scenarios in our regular professional development and staff meeting time so that we can problem solve with our teaching staff and have open discussions about protocols and guidelines. So from that point of view, I do feel like our teachers are well informed and ready. We have not done walkthroughs because at this time we have not required teachers to be back in the building. But of course, once they're notified, we will do that. They are already very familiar with the building, so we're able to educate them and inform them a lot of times, even in a virtual setting, because our teachers are so familiar with the building. So I would say in terms of Ball Charter being ready for a return, yes, I with one caveat that a lot of information about this virus changes on a weekly basis. And right now, IESA and the state and the district are opening up youth sports. And so there are things that I had to learn today. So it's an ever evolving environment. And for you to say that you're ready, are you ready for anything? Probably not. But have you considered risks? Have you reviewed guidelines? And have you been open with your staff? Have you also taken in consideration staff who may not be able to return? Yes, we have definitely done all those things. Right now, our numbers sit just below 56% of parents wanting hybrid. And so we're very close to a 50-50 split. I know some parents have said, will the majority of parents want to do this, or the majority of parents, and that is not a determining factor for us because our school population really is right down the middle. And so what we have prioritized is the safety of adults. I do think that, this has an effect on adults much harsher than just from what we've studied and what we've evidenced and researched ourselves, more than the students. But every person is valuable. And so, we have, and what the other thing I would say is that no matter what situation we are in, whether it is remote or hybrid, we're going to absolutely make the best out of it. There are some sacrifices with the hybrid that, it's going to reduce instructional time for us. There's one thing we have not had to worry about: substitute teaching when you're having to do online teaching for your remote learners. And we just haven't really had to utilize that very much. And so our students have benefited to that. I agree with you that it's not best for everybody. I also agree that in-person learning, we have a lot of, students that struggle. So us having to problem solve through this really is not a different experience, but we realize it's not ideal.
And I'm sorry, and I didn't want anyone to think that I was accusing any votes of not being public. I know how that works.
Sure.
I think I got on here tonight hoping to hear more maybe some back and forth with the board members, because at the 186 meetings, people are very vocal. And so I was kind of looking for that. And Miss Williams, I didn't want you to think, I know you're going to be prepared. I know. Yeah, I'm not worried about that at all. I'm just, I hear from people that, there's principals of these schools that there was no direction given by District 186 board. And so they were kind of thrown into it. And Marie, your school may be the exception. I'm sorry, Sheila.
No, I just want to, Sean, I just need to help you a little bit, because I do definitely appreciate you bringing these to the forefront, because people need to know there's a lot of myths and misnomers out there. I will say that every single principal and their teams and teachers and the union, and Ms. Williams is a part of that, had to create a return to learn safety policy that had to be approved to the nth degree that they had to go in and measure. We had to send people in to measure how many bodies and desks could be in one room at any given time, and post outside the door what the capacity is for that classroom, what the process should be, what the isolation room would look like, how they're going to come into the building, how they're going to go out of the building. I've never seen so many arrows in my life. And I will say, in the beginning of all this, because I have lost family members to COVID, so I was struggling with all of this. So I'm just being open and transparent. And I will also say that I really struggled with when would we open the buildings, because of the metrics was this, the metrics was that, nobody knew, and all of those different things went on. But when I subbed in that classroom at ELC, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds who knew what to do, they knew where to sit, where to stand, how to get where they were going, the mask stayed on, the teacher's mask was on. We couldn't go outside because it was snowing that day. And so I'm helping them do gross motor skills with a mask on. And I was never so happy in my life to have story time, because I'm old. But anyway, what I'm saying is, and I knew when to spray everything down. We have 36 buildings in District 186. I don't know everybody's single plan, but I tell you what, when you go into the building to help, you know exactly what to do, because those people who paid attention, who walked the building, and it wasn't every teacher that walked the building, the ARs, who are the association reps, walked the building with the principal to make sure everything was in line. Nurses did the same thing. And I hate to say it, but it also depends on who you talk to and where their mind is.
Sure.
So I mean, we were very, 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 very thorough. Would we miss something from time to time? Yes, because we don't know every single situation. Even getting off the bus, getting on the bus, lunchtime. I've helped cover lunch time this past couple of weeks in the buildings, and they've got desks in the cafeteria, not the tables on a lot of them, and the kids know where to sit. And all. I mean, when I tell you, Sean, we are running schools better now, during COVID, than I would say pre-COVID. So it's a lot that went into it, and for folks to say they didn't have a plan, they didn't know, that is not accurate, and that is not fair to say. And I'm not just going to say that, because if we weren't safe,
sure,
I wasn't going to a building, and I wasn't going to dispatch 35, 40 of my folks to go to a building to put them in harm's way either. So I just wanted to, and I in the buildings I've seen maybe 1 or 2 kids, just depends, in the isolation room, and people are taking care of and getting all those kind of things going on. So there's a lot that went into it. And let's not fool ourselves either. All the places that you think are doing well, they're just not publicizing it. And I'm gonna leave it right there.
Sure. Yeah, and that's good to hear, because you don't hear the positives. So
and I will say, I was very impressed at what I saw, and the thoroughness of the plans. And like I said, Ms. Williams and Ms. Harrison have been a part of that, from, we're creating those plans, and they couldn't open if they did not have those plans, and those plans had to be approved before they were implemented. And we sent some plans back. Nope, this is not going to work.
And I think that's where a lot of my frustration comes in, is because I don't want to brag, but I think we are the best school in District 186. Mm-hmm. So I struggle with, everybody else is going back. Why can't we? We're the best of the best. We should be able to also. And that's the way I feel about Ball Charter. That's how strong I feel, awesome, that the school is that good. So that's where a lot of my frustration comes from, is because I know Miss Williams and Miss Harrison and all the teachers. I know they're going to do a great job. And when the kids come back, it's going to be a safe environment. So that's where I struggle with. We should have been the leaders almost because, you know, we do that good of a job, but, and I'll just leave it at that. So, but thank you so much for letting me
You're
take the time.
welcome. Thank you.
And I appreciate the comments too. Our thing is, it's not in terms of a comparison. It wouldn't even be between me and a parochial or ball charter and District 186. It's between COVID and ball charter. And so, you know, from that perspective, what we've told our parents is when we do, that's when, you know, we feel confident that we can meet the needs that your children have on a regular basis. So we're always working towards that. And I've been very open with my teachers that I do anticipate a return to school this semester. The community is doing what they need to do, and that's what's pushing us in the right direction.
So keep watching, because we appreciate that you put the information on the webpage to be transparent about where we're at with our metrics, because we made a commitment to those and to stick to those. We're consistently reviewing them and the data that we're collecting to evaluate those. So we keep working on it. We don't have disagreements about it at this time because we are working towards that one common goal, fortunately. So at this time, with no further business. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to, before you guys go, we have to recognize 8th grader Caitlin Luciano. She wrote an award-winning essay for the Dr. Martin Luther King annual essay contest hosted by the Ministerial Alliance. If you haven't had an opportunity to see that video, it's featured on our YouTube page, and it's also featured on our school website. So, you know, we are just so proud of her, and the program that they put together was wonderful. But to also see our students still participating in some of these community activities, although they're virtual, she just represented Ball Charter wonderfully, and we're very, very proud of Caitlin in this achievement.
And you ought to, because we read so many essays. We didn't know who they were.
Right.
The names are redacted, but excellent. So be proud, Ball Charter. Stand tall.
Mary, there was one other thing I was hoping to ask for Ms. Williams on the slides that you've been updating with regards to the return to school. That's right below the dashboard. So dashboard 1 of 14 or whatever would be a 14, and then right below it, when the notices I think you may be working on for some more specifics of what return to, if the slide 3 could, I've gotten some questions from parents about what the return would look like in a hybrid. So some of the specifics that I think you're working on in terms of the half day and some of the rotations, if you can just throw those into slide 3 or an extra slide, because I think some of the parents are going to that, start going to that a little bit more.
Okay.
That's a good point, Brian, because that will help ease some of the apprehension that people may have. So great point.
Yeah, and we're also, I'm trying to put things in weekly reminders. So just out to parents when we're getting out robocalls and remote learning updates, you know, please pay attention to those. We had a couple parents show up to school, and so it's like, I'm trying to call you, I'm trying to text you, make sure your information is updated with us, and we're certainly going to keep you posted and updated on those, on that information.
And in those notices, whether they go out or they go on the slides, those that kind of need that intervention, whatever it is they need to, it sounds like you've mentioned, I saw like, you know, that we got about 10 to 15% that have been maybe coming because of extra help that's been needed. You know, and so whatever it is they, you know, whatever simple step or two they need to do when that extra help's needed, I would assume it's probably in all
right.
of
And some of the parents, like if we've offered some in-person supervision while parents were switching jobs or relocating or things like that throughout the city, has been a big help. I have found though that we have some of the parents with these concerns, and some of them are still choosing to keep their children remote. So even a hybrid offering would not better support those students. So I just kind of giving you guys like what's going on in the mind of the principal in terms of how we kind of problem solve through all those. And then we've had some where it's not that they just want the child to be here, they want them to be here with the teacher. And so in those cases, even an in-person supervision opportunity just to keep the student on track might not be helpful. And the last thing I just remind parents of is we do have to mask up, we do have to distance. And so, our regular in-person experience, if you walked into a classroom, you saw a lot of collaborative work amongst students in small groups with teachers. And that's what we're having to do virtually right now. And that is a big key to our success. It is not something that you can do successfully while distancing. So there are other pros to being in person, absolutely. But because of COVID, it still puts some very real limitations on the teacher's ability to work one-on-one with your student in an in-person setting, and for that teacher to remain safely distanced. So those are just some other things that you might consider. You can always send me an email, and if you think again that some short-term in-person supervision to re-engage your child and get them back on track would help, please reach out to myself or Mrs. Harrison, and we'll continue to keep that website updated.
Awesome. Thank you so much for adding that. We appreciate it. All right, so third time's a charm. At this time, I don't think we have any more business before the board this evening, so we will adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn this evening?
So moved.
I'll second.
And all those in favor, yay. All right.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 7:51 this evening. Thank you, everybody, so much for efforts and time. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody. Great meeting.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.